Now, if you're planning to make any disparaging comments about your boss, don't make them in writing. It's a rule that the England cricket star Kevin Pietersen might have been well advised to follow, given that he's now been dropped from the national team, having apparently been less than complimentary about the team's captain, Andrew Strauss, in text messages addressed to friends who play for South Africa. Strauss said the issue at stake is trust and mutual respect, and today Pietersen apologised for what he said was meant to be banter between close friends. But shouldn't decisions about who plays and who doesn't play be based on a player's performance rather than what he says or does in his own time? Paul Smith played for Warwickshire in the 1980s and 90s. Ed Smith played for Kent and for England and now writes for The Times. Ed Smith first.
Ideally, yes. I think in peacetime that's absolutely the way to select a team. You just try and pick the best players. However, the ultimate criteria for any selection is that the team performs at its best. You try and fit the best 11 names into one team so that that team performs better than any other option. Now, if there comes a point where one player has actually broken a code of conduct or has become a distraction, there can be times when you leave out players who would, purely in terms of talent and performance, get into the best 11.
So, Paul Smith, it is team cohesion which has to take priority.
I played a lot of cricket with Brian Lara. Brian Lara had, on occasions, similar sort of scenarios to what Kevin Pietersen's going through at the moment. I'd have always picked Brian Lara. If you're going over the top from the trenches, you want your best performers out there, and this is not a life or death scenario, and obviously I agree with that 100% in terms of you pick your best 11 in the ideal scenario, but as we stand, trying to get 1-1 in a series.
The trouble, Ed Smith, with saying to people, you've got to watch what you say, you've got to watch what you do, is that you could get to a situation where a professional sportsman or woman is no longer really regarded as having the same rights of free speech as the rest of us.
I think that's probably slightly over-intellectualising the situation here. I completely agree that you want individuals playing sport, you want individuals in all walks of life if you're running any kind of a business or team. However, if you are captain, coach, management of an England side, you cannot allow a situation to develop where something is such a distraction that it is really inhibiting your performance as a team, or potentially inhibiting. The interesting thing is that we know from what happened in the Premiership, like the Premier League last year, where Mancini at Manchester City left out Balotelli and Tevez in particular, and then brought them back into the fold. And I think England have got a great opportunity to say, look, we've made a point, Kevin Pietersen, you've got to play along with the rules as everyone else does. But now you've suggested you want to do that, the door's open for you.
It's difficult, Paul Smith, to conceive of a successful team in which the captain knows that at least one of his players has been bad-mouthing him behind his back.
I can tell you that having played a lot of professional sport, I've gone and drunk quite a lot of beer with opponents where I've heard teammates criticising members of my team. So, is there any difference? Of course, you don't really want to be sat in a changing room sending texts to people who are in the changing room next door. I think that's bang out of order. But Andrew Strauss is a pretty intelligent man, and I think that they've got some pretty intelligent people within that changing room. I think this could have been nailed much quicker than this.
I suppose, Ed Smith, what it boils down to is that at the very top levels of sport, you have big personalities, big egos, people who perhaps almost think that they're bigger than the team itself. Is that just part of the cost of top-class sport?
Yes, I think that's true. However, I do take issue with the view which has been aired by a lot of people in this sort of saga, which is that, oh, you've just got to manage this situation. That suggests, that implies, it's predicated on the logic that this situation can be managed. Not every player, not every person within a business can be managed. There comes a point where you have to say, do you know what, we've done everything we can, but we just couldn't handle this situation. We had to draw a line. And I think it's very wrong when people sit on the outside and they say this is a failure of the ECB. We don't know that. We actually don't know whether they've done everything possible to accommodate Pietersen, and it just hasn't proved possible in this instance.
Paul Smith, is it to do, at least in part, with team dynamics? It's not only to do with the relationship between Kevin Pietersen and his captain, but it's to do with inter-team relationships.
Well, the cohesion of the team, that just doesn't apply till sport. I can think of a lot of members of bands who hate the lead singer, and yet they go out and perform in front of 20 or 30,000 people and are dynamite, and then leave in separate limousines. I think this is a bit of a handbag sort of scenario, a bit similar to that, but yeah, I think that if you play in a team, it's 11 guys, you've got to go out there and you've got to perform. You've got supporters, you've got people who've paid a lot of money. They want to see the best players on the field.
former cricketers Paul Smith and Ed Smith. Now tonight's main